No.
Well, good evening, members. Before I open the meeting, please can I ask any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device to mute it to avoid feedback, please. And can I ask remote participants to keep your camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak, and ideally not to use your camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the IT connection. Please note the meeting will be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their Swelborough Council or Kent County Council laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you, and you will not be recorded as being in remote attendance. Members, can I ask you to speak loudly and clearly into your microphones and to switch your microphone off after speaking. Otherwise, remote participants may be unable to hear the next speaker. Well, welcome everyone to this Policy and Resources Committee meeting, including any visiting members attending remotely and members of the public. The Chair, my good self, will welcome now all the staff that are in attendance in the meeting room. Our Director of Resources, Lisa Fillery, our Monitoring Officer, Robin Harris, Policy and Engagement Officer, Janet Dart, and our Head of Revenues and Benefits, Zoe Kent, and our Democratic Services Officers, Kelly McKenzie, and a very warm welcome to his first meeting at Swell, to our new Senior Democratic Services Officer, Tim Neal. Welcome, Tim. There is no fire drill planned this evening, and if the alarm sounds, those in attendance should leave via the exits indicated and assemble outside where directed. Do not use the lifts. Can I ask that if anyone in attendance this evening requires extra assistance to make themselves known to me now? Okay, thank you all. Are there any apologies for absence? And could I have confirmation of substitutes, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Mike Baldock did say he had a migraine, so may have to give his apologies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I wish him well. It's not a very pleasant thing, migraine, I've got to say. Members, are there any declarations of interest? Thank you. And so now we'll move on to the formal agenda, which are items for formal decisions. And first of all, it's item 4, which is our Council Tax Support Scheme 2627. And I'll ask our officer to introduce the report, please. Thank you. Zoe, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Each year, the authority is required to set out its council tax reduction scheme for the next financial year by the 11th of March. The scheme has to be approved by full council. Council tax has gradually become a heavier burden on low-income families as the rate of council tax has increased at a faster rate than state benefits and low earnings. Many families struggle to pay all their household bills as the cost of running a household has increased during the cost of living crisis. It is therefore proposed to increase the maximum level of support to 100%. A consultation was carried out in the summer of 2025 for a period of 8 weeks. The results of the consultation can be found in Appendix 2. 436 people responded to the consultation. 73% of people supported increasing the maximum level of support. The major precepting authorities, Kent County Council, Kent Police and Kent Fire and Rescue Services, did not support increasing the maximum level of support. The response to their concerns can be found in section 5 of the report. Appendix 1 gives an overview of the schemes across the country that are at 100%. A number of other Kent authorities are proposing to increase their schemes to 100%. Many claimants who fall into arrears never pay amounts that are owed, so the cost of the scheme will partly be offset against the current bad debt provision. For those who struggle to pay, this will enable them to use their limited income to pay towards other utility bills and household expenses. We have also proposed the following: that bands 2 to 4 are increased by 10% to encourage people to work, that the minimum income floor for self-employed claimants is removed. Now that the majority of working age claimants are on universal credit, their earnings are taken into account as part of the universal credit calculation. That the compensation schemes listed in 2.20 are disregarded in line with other welfare benefits. And finally, that the income thresholds for each band are increased by the inflation uplift used by the Department for Work and Pensions. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Zoe. Councillor Gibson, please.
One question of clarification and then a couple of comments, if that's all right. On 5.11, it compares our take and KCC's take both in millions. I suspect, as ours reads as higher, that the KCC one is meant to say billion. But can we just check that number? 5.11. So yeah, I believe KCC's overall budget is 1.5 billion, not million.
It's 150.
Oh,
Oh.
531 million.
There we go. I can't read, so we'll just move on from that swiftly. That's very positive. So broadly, my comment relates to that is that particularly in light of, if I can't read these documents correctly, we should perhaps have a little more sympathy for KCC's inability to read the document that clearly says reviewed annually. But I might also be more sympathetic to KCC's view about good stewardship if they were not simultaneously proposing a budget massively raiding their own reserves, dangerously underfunding our county. But I shall reserve those views. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Palmer.
What's trying to be achieved, but do we then introduce another series of unfairness in a system that is already probably treating people unfairly? Because a lot of people who are in work and might not be on benefit really struggle. So how do we cope with them? Because I've had feedback from people on various different things that the council's done. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not on benefit and I'm struggling, but I never seem to get anything from the council. And there's also been concerns raised about the consultation process. How confident are we that the consultation process was a fair and thorough consultation process?
So we emailed out to every benefit claimant that we held an email address for, and then we sent just over 200 paper forms out as well to those that we don't hold an email address. Luckily now most people do have an email address, so it's probably just the older benefit claimants where we've not received an email address that we don't have one from. So we emailed all of them. The media team were really good at sending it out, and we tried to get as many opinions in as we could to get opinions from people. It's always a difficult thing. There's always a cut-off on everything. There's a cut-off on universal credits. There was on tax credits. There's always some people that will miss out. But what we're hoping with this, by helping the people on the lowest income and taking a chunk of people out having to pay anything, we can then, the recovery team and the billing team can then spend time helping those people that fall just out of that amount, setting them up with fair arrangements so that they can afford to pay. We also try to pick people up that may possibly be entitled to universal credit when we get income and expenditure forms in.
Thank you. Councillor Worcester. Sorry.
The fairness of the process, the consultation.
Zoe answered that. We emailed 5,000 people.
Right, yep, fine. That's benefit claimants. What about non-benefit claimants? How effective were they at being informed, and have they had the opportunity to put their input in?
It was on the website for 8 weeks, and lots went out on social media about it. And we know how much comes in on social media, that people monitor our social media constantly, and something goes slightly wrong and people are onto it straight away. So they had every opportunity to respond.
Thank you. Councillor Worcester, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry I was running a couple of minutes late for the meeting. Do apologise about that. In 2.8 of the report, it talks about council tax being a regressive tax falling proportionally more heavily on lower income households. I see that the document cited is 2020 to 21. Do we have any more up-to-date data on this? And have we got anything that we are doing to monitor that specifically to SWAL, which might answer some more councillors' questions potentially? Thank you.
So we use policy and practice, which we use for our welfare officers, so that we can contact groups where we think we can go down to ward level and see where people are living on low incomes. It's that this was a really big report that came out that concentrated on council tax. There's lots of reports that come out all the time, but they're not necessarily talking about council tax. But yeah, we do look out for any reports like this.
Just to come back on that, Chair, really quickly, I don't attend the cost of living meeting held by SWAL at the moment. I did for a long time, and I personally think that's an excellent place where the data that is generated from SWAL absolutely supports that. I was just wondering if we could point councillors in a more specific direction if there was anything written down, but I will go back and look at that report. That's great information. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gold, please.
Thank you. You mentioned that there's the increase in the percentage will be slightly offset by the lack of the provision for bad debts. Is it possible to sort of quantify that at all, about how much we lose compared to how much we thought we might lose, if that makes sense?
I can answer part of that, and then Zoe can do the rest. So the provision for the support scheme forms part of the council tax base calculation and our assumptions on collection. And so why it's not directly quantified in that calculation, I have assumed over that our council tax base shouldn't be affected by the different levels at 89 to 100% because of the way that we're collecting and the amount that we can collect, because there's less to collect at 100%, and it should be, and the bits that are then are more collectible than those at 80 and 90%. So I don't think we've done the direct calculation, or have you? You might have done.
No, no. It's I think that there's a whole group of people that don't pay anything. So we're looking that once they're taken out of it, because the biggest group of people that really struggle are single people, because single people have such a small amount of income they've got to live on, and so paying their council tax is a big hit for them. So by taking them out, it should effectively, the collection rate for benefit claimants is 80%, around 80%, and then our overall collection rate was 95.6%, I believe, for last year. So it should, just by taking a group of people out, that we calculate the collection rate over a 5-year period. When we get up to now, is it 98% that we have in there, or
97.8 for the current year.
Yeah, so we're expecting after 5 years it goes up and up. So we're expecting in the future that will increase.
Does that answer your question?
No, probably doesn't.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Leader. And thank you to Zoe and Lisa for bringing this one forward. In terms of a question, just is this or a very similar policy going into the other Mid-Kent authorities? I'm thinking Maidstone, Tunbridge Wells, etc., for the 100% scheme. Certainly, I would give support, having seen the data that comes through from policy and practice in the day job. There is a stark correlation. You see council tax arrear as one tag. You've got a pretty good shot that that person will then have a rent arrear tag and a fuel and water poverty tag on that data. These are the poorest people in society, those who are put in positions where their debts are most certainly not manageable, and where we can reduce them. It's not just reducing what necessarily may be brought in for those precepting authorities and ourselves. It's reducing the chance of these people losing their homes, because actually they've got a little bit more money there to pay down some of those rent arrears. It's a fine balancing act, and actually it would probably cost us more to reduce the amount of discount that we provide than it would to increase it, because we'd end up having a higher homelessness issue.
Thank you. Councillor Wise.
Yeah, I think it seems to me that what we're dealing with here is a bit of a balancing act, and that's ultimately what we've got to try and consider and weigh up, because over a 10-year period there was a far greater pressure put upon benefits claimants in particular. It's the result of cumulative failures year on year to uprate benefits in line with inflation, squeezing those incomes. But at the same time, the previous government was putting an even greater emphasis on councils raising revenue through council tax rises being baked in, rather than councils being funded properly through grant as they had been before. So we were seeing a sort of pincer happening there. And then obviously the previous KCC administration also took that decision to remove that grant assistance. So this is really why we're having to look very carefully at how we balance where we are looking to take this sort of recovery action and how we do it, and the resource that goes into that. So it's quite something for people to have to get their head around. I understand that, but it seems that on balance, when this is what the figures that were presented to us, particularly on page 5, 6 and 7, that this seems like something that we can reasonably go ahead with, so that we can try and strike the best balance we can with the resources we have when trying to take recovery action. So I would be in support of this on that basis, that it's a very difficult balancing act, but something that is the culmination of years of squeezing districts and on squeezing the very lowest people on the very lowest incomes. So that's why I will support this.
Thank you. Members, I don't see anybody else indicating. So what I intend to do, if you're happy for me to do that, is to take all 6 of the recommendations on block, rather than having to vote on each individual one. Are you happy? Okay, thank you. Could I have a proposer, please, then? Councillor Wise, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Bowen. Thank you. Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? And abstentions? Okay, so that's 12 for, 2 against, and so that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Zoe. Right, we move on to agenda item 5, which is the constitutional amendments. Various, and they are various. And I'll thank our Monitoring Officer, Robin Harris, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Just be grateful if, before we begin, members would confirm they had the opportunity to read the report, which was published in the normal time, but also in particular the appendix, which was published following the report, and obviously the appendix being the key document, that being the matters which we would seek to amend in the Constitution. I'm grateful.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. If I could just come in again very briefly. And members, can you confirm that you've had sight of an email from Councillor Whiting? Right. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
So, if I may, members, I'll take the proposed changes in order, which means that we won't come to Councillor Whiting's comments immediately. But in respect of the appendix item 1A, this is a proposal which I think has potentially been before a working group of members previously in relation to adding to the Constitution a short protocol in relation to the appropriate way by which members might engage with the developers during the pre-application process. And the particular recommendation in respect of this item is that the entire protocol, which appears at item 1A, is inserted into the Constitution, directly preceding some previous advice given by the previous monitoring officer on a similar topic. I want to ask if members actually have any questions or have any potential or proposed amendments to that protocol.
No particular comments on the protocol. It seems a very sensible course of action. My question really is: is it usual across our colleagues across local government to have that level of detail in a constitution? My kind of intuitive feel is that feels like quite a lot of detail, and having a published and agreed protocol broadly provides the same level of enforcement of the protocol as putting it in the constitution does. So what is the benefit of doing this and do it as everybody else done it as well, or not?
Certainly, it's quite commonplace for local authorities to have a protocol of this nature. Sometimes it is put in a sort of suite of planning documents. Sometimes it's in the Constitution. That's a matter of style for different authorities. But the advantage, of course, it being in the Constitution is it's in our central governing document, and obviously everyone has the opportunity, both public and members, to see it and understand the standards by which we're all going to be working to. And in which case, so I think the recommendation in the report is in fact a recommendation which covers the whole thing. As recommended, to consider the amendments Appendix 1 and determine which of the amendments recommend to Council for their incorporation into the Constitution. On that basis, perhaps if we just take them as we go through them, I'd be grateful, with your permission, Chair, for a show of hands confirming that members are content that the protocol as written is inserted into the Constitution as proposed. That is a vote, yes. It is unanimous, yes, so I'm very grateful. If we can then move to Appendix 1, Item B. This is a relatively straightforward proposal actually brought forward by the Section 151 officer in relation to allowing there to be a little more time to consider amendments to the budget. The specific recommendation is actually on page 6, that the paragraph in the Constitution which deals with that issue is amended to state notice of amendments to the budget are to be given to the proper officer not later than 4:30 p.m. on the Thursday preceding the council meeting. That basically literally gives the Section 151 officer and the finance team a short while longer to consider amendments to the budget, in the circumstances where it's already on quite a tight timescale and deadline, and that would just provide a little more time for better analysis in order to hopefully give better options to members when the budget comes forward. I don't know if Section 151 officer would like to add anything further to that.
I would, thank you. This doesn't stop me working with any of you ahead of that. This is the official publication date of official amendments. So anything that you would like to work up into official amendment before that, I'm happy to work with you. But it's if I don't work with you in advance and they come on the Monday, there is not enough time to turn that around by the Wednesday. So this builds in technically a day and a half of working days, but it does build in the weekend as well. So if I get an avalanche, there is some chance that we can get through them rather than having to try and cram them in from the Monday. So it's yes, it doesn't shouldn't stop the other process of please talk to me before that. Please don't wait till this date is what I'm trying to say.
Councillor Worcester?
I think this is a thoroughly sensible suggestion and way forward, and I wanted to thank officers for bringing it forward. I think anything that gives you more time to consider what's going on, a really good plan. Brilliant.
Thank you. So, members, Councillor Hunt. Only we would know that. Okay, members, those in favour of supporting that? Unanimous, absolutely. Absolutely, yes, yeah. Okay, so that amendment, that's fine.
Moving on to item 1C, I think actually before going into this, this item is on this agenda and it's very short because it literally covers just the proposed changes to the Constitution. But this matter has in fact actually been to PNR and various members before. So I think it's probably helpful, if I may, Chair, to pass over to my colleague Janet Dart, just to give you a little bit more background in relation to this piece before looking at the changes to the Constitution.
Yes, of course. Janet?
Thank you. Yes, members will recall that on the 26th of November, a report came to this committee setting out the 14 recommendations that the Area Committee Review member working group were proposing, which were agreed by this committee. But they also requested that one of the recommendations about changing the voting arrangements go to the Constitution Working Group to check that the legalities behind making that change. It then did, on the 5th of January this year, it did go to the Constitution Working Group, and they looked at it in detail. They were broadly happy with the recommendations, but they did make some slight amendments, changes to the wording that would be in the final list of recommendations. I can just quickly run through. In this report, you've got the final wording that was agreed by the Constitution Working Group, but I'll just sort of let you know for each one what those changes were and why. So for the first one, there were no changes there. That's about the name, the changing the name, and they agreed that with the purpose that the working group set out, that it would make it clearer. For the second one, what they changed was they just wanted to make it clearer that the outcomes were made clear at the meeting, so that people didn't have unrealistic expectations should they vote on an item. So, for example, if they vote, they know what the next stage will be, that i.e. it may go to another committee, and that committee will make the final decision. And because at the area committee, if it has been a vote has taken place, it doesn't mean that is the final decision. So it is just really adding wording there to provide clarity. Then that they also looked at the other recommendations, and for the next one, number 3, they just wanted to clarify who ward councillors were. So they just wanted to add in the wording there, in this context, ward councillor means a Swale Borough councillor who is a member of the relevant councillor and resident forum. So that is just adding some wording for clarity. And then the last one, again, it's just adding some wording. They felt that there should be consistency across all four area committees as to which items should have an open vote, more open vote, so that if you had a consultation on an item, members of the public could vote at all four meetings, would all have that wider vote at all four meetings, and not just at one of the area committees and the others they can't vote. So that was just to ensure that the chairs were all in agreement which items should have that public vote. I think that's probably it. I'll hand back to...
Thank you. I've got Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. Is this not jumping the gun? Did we not agree that the area committee name would stay until the next annual council? Should this not wait until we vote on the council functions as we do at every annual meeting? And paragraph 1, I can't see that being directly planted into the Constitution. I'm happy for paragraph 4 to go in now. That should more than happen, but I feel any reference to councillors and residents forums wasn't until after the annual meeting. So we can recommend it now with the caveat that it goes on at it goes forward for annual council rather than the next council meeting.
Yep, so the perfectly sensible. Thank you, Councillor Jays. As I obviously, the role of this committee this evening is to make recommendations to council, and in relation to that, there's no reason why you can't wait until annual council for the name change to take effect, while still agreeing the principle of the name change at this point to be recommended to council, with it actually moving forward. I'm not sure necessarily that needs an amendment, because the timing of it is within the gift of when we do the updates to the Constitution. So having heard that, I think that's a perfectly sensible suggestion in respect of item number 1, and then, as you say, in relation to item 4, obviously you're happy with immediately. Do you feel the same in relation to item 2 and 3, that basically it should start with a new committee cycle rather than change in an existing committee cycle?
I think so, to avoid confusion, but obviously happy to hear from other members.
I mean, from my perspective, it would be very, very sensible. Councillor Bowen.
On that particular point, I would agree. Between now and May, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've probably only got one round of area committee meetings anyway, and being that this won't be going to full council until February, 28th of January, so it would only affect potentially one meeting anyway, so I've got no issue with it actually going over to May. I do have... the voting part was my one area where, even when we had the constitutional working group, slight hesitation on, which is why, and it's not in here, and with respect to Janet being the font of all knowledge on area committees, and by attending them knows what occurs at said meetings. But with respect to Janet, you don't have the authority to overrule necessarily the chair as such. And my issue on the voting part is we cannot get into a position where we have one area committee chair says, if it's the same agenda item that's going across all of them or a number of them, that you have one area committee chair saying, yep, public can vote on that, and another area committee chair says, or councillors residents forum chair says, no, we can't do that. Janet, with respect, can't stop that. You don't have the authority. So, which is why and I would suggest an amendment to number 4. And I don't agree with Councillor Whiting's comments in his email on this particular point. For this reason, I would suggest that on point number 4, chairs to meet before and after each round of meetings. Because if they meet before, they can identify which agenda items are going to be across all of them, and they can agree at that point which ones the public can vote on. There's no point doing it in hindsight, looking back at the meetings which just occurred. And if you leave it until the next round, you may not actually at that point know which ones could be coming into the agenda. So if you leave it to slightly closer to when the first one starts, we'll have, I think, a much more consistent potential approach or avoid potential confusion. So I would make a recommendation or an amendment to number 4 of chairs to meet before and after each round of meetings to review and forward plan. Hopefully I'd have a seconder on that.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, you certainly can. Yeah.
Thank you, there, Councillor Bowen. In actual fact, I think that is in fact presupposed by the existing wording, because it says chairs to meet after each round of meetings to review and forward plan. In particular, this meeting will consider future items that are suitable for public vote / indication. So it proposes that meeting determines the future items that will go to the vote. So it's not 2 meetings, but it's 1 meeting, but it does make that decision at that point.
If I could, thanks, Robin. And usually, the vast majority of times, I think that will be exactly the case. There could be occasions between after the round of one set of meetings and before the start of the next one, which was several weeks, month or two later, something may come in, and that's why I think actually before and after would be better. But I do absolutely take and accept your point. Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask why? Sorry, Robin. The meeting needs to be afterwards. Is it not just one before that needs to be held? Because afterwards, all of the wash up is reported to Policy and Resources, and Janet does put all that together. Is there a need for 2 meetings, or is it just the one to review what's coming and to assess the voting position?
As somebody who I think is a great believer in looking back and thinking about, is there anything which we could actually improve on? You can't do that in advance. So I think I do take the point, actually, probably the one beforehand is more important, but always looking back at what you've done and could we do it better next time is always a refreshing tool.
Sounds a bit like a corporate plan, doesn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Right, I've got Councillor Wise.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm in agreement with Councillor Bowen there. I don't think it necessarily, therefore, your proposal means there has to be 2 meetings, because you're not actually saying in there that the chairs have to have 2 meetings. You are saying that they must meet, around for each round of meetings to review and forward plan. So, however that's captured, I think in your wording, doesn't necessarily translate to we must therefore hold 2 meetings. I think what you're suggesting, and the wording that you used, I'm in total agreement with, because then I think that can be covered off in however the chairs make sure that they meet ahead of those meetings to forward plan and to look back. I think that's totally right, and I'm in agreement with that. And I don't agree with the concerns that Councillor Whiting circulated about chairs facilitating the public having a say in these meetings, whether that's through a vote or however other means. I think the consultations, when the area committee reviews were undertaken, where this sort of suggestion came from, it was so that it's an additional way that the chairs and the councillors in attendance there can in effect consult. I think that's what it is. Committees freely utilise public views through consultations and petitions and other expressions, and I don't think that we should be concerned about using these proposed forums to allow that form of consultation to happen in those meetings as well. In terms of his objection to the change in the name, obviously, as an area committee chair, as someone who therefore was then part of the review that supported these proposals at a previous Policy and Resources meeting, unfortunately, I couldn't make the Constitution Working Group meeting, otherwise I'd have discussed them again there, and I'm now here discussing them once again. I'm very happy that Councillor Whiting has engaged on this point and sent his views round, but I don't agree with them. We've had other opportunities to object with this. Policy and Resources did want to go ahead with this change, and the name change was a response to consultation feedback. We went out and we asked the public and we asked members, and the public engaged slightly better than members with responding to this review as well. And some of the general feedback that we got there was that people didn't think that the area committee said to them that they would be able to meet with and speak with their local councillors there. And that's one of the main reasons that some people want to come along, so that they have the opportunity to meet and speak with us. So, and discuss topics that matter to their local area with us. So I'm very much in support of us moving ahead with that name change, because I do think that the purpose of those meetings will become slightly clearer. But again, it's really incumbent on all of us to make sure that we recognise that says councillors and residents forum. And councillors need to make greater effort to turn up to these as well. So we're both in there on that name change. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Wise has said most of what I would have gone for and said it far better than I would. So thank you very much for that. Just to follow on and to address the point made by Councillor Jays earlier, when we discussed these recommendations as a working group and when we discussed them again at P&R and again and again and again, I think we're on about 25, aren't we? It was based on the idea that this would come in for the next civic year. It wouldn't impact on this civic year, and I believe most of the agendas for this next and final round of meetings of the area committees for this year will be published before the next full council anyway, so we wouldn't be able to implement those changes ahead. So more than happy to continue with these as they have now been amended.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, please.
I think most of the points I was going to mention, but Councillor Bain did put an amendment in, and I can see the logic in doing that, because there are such a long gap between the area committees, things could change. But do you need it before, or do you need, I think you need one before, and that's where you can set and make sure that it's consistent for the public. Afterwards, yeah, I don't think there's any problem if there's a meeting afterwards where they might have common themes that came up that they might need to refer to a relevant committee. So I would support that amendment, and I think that's what we need to do. I think people are happy with 1, 2 and 3. It's the amendment to 4. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Worcester.
Thank you, Chair. I've read through the email that Councillor Whiting has sent in. I wonder if he's misunderstood what we're trying to do here this evening, because a lot of it seems to be based around how he feels attendance to area committees is going to be affected, when in fact we're just looking at constitution changes. I was wondering if we could take this a bit further, because items 2 and 3 I agree with. What does sit with me a bit odd is that it's very confusing potentially for members of the public in meetings like that to look at who's voting and who's can have a say and who can't. So would it be possible to take, if this goes through, to take this a bit further for items 2 and 3 and look and ask committee chairs to really think about how the agenda is worded and how we're expressing that to members of the public to try and get a maximum engagement and for them to feel not alienated by I call it edu-speak, but it's council speak. It's stuff that we would understand and members of the public may take a while to get their head round. I think committee chairs could have a really good role in making that really transparent and understandable. And on item on Councillor Whiting's email, last point he makes, deciding behind closed doors, I take issue with that wording. That is very divisive language to use around a council, like we're working to purposely hide information and things from members of the public. At no point have I ever been involved in swell work that has seek to have done any of that. And my concern is that it does paint us in a light, because this is the way that all of our meetings between committee chairs and officers work when we decide on agendas, isn't it? So if we're taking umbrage with or using phrases like deciding behind closed doors that what members can vote on and public can vote on, does that mean that if we take that point, that we then look at the way that all of our committee agendas are then looked at? Because as far as I'm aware, it's the same process through all of the committee meetings unless somebody can correct me. So I don't think that point stands, and I do take issue with that phrasing. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to bring Mr. Harris back in, and then I want to kind of, if there's a potential to roll up any of the things into your original proposal, get it seconded, and then we'll get it voted on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah. So the thing that I particularly wanted to pull back to when speaking again was the point that Councillor Palmer made when he spoke initially, which was that actually, strictly speaking, at the moment we are speaking to the amendment proposed by Councillor Bowen and was actually seconded by Councillor Palmer. I think people have generally addressed that. They've perhaps drifted, not tragically or terribly, but drifted a little bit to the slightly wider issue. And so the issue on the table at the moment is the wording was suggested that it currently says chairs to meet after each round of meetings, and Councillor Bowen suggested that wording be changed to chairs to meet before and after each round of meetings. And again, I think I slightly disagree with Councillor Wise's point. He said that doesn't have to be 2 meetings, but I think it probably does. Although I think it follows that the meeting that is after will be before, and the meeting that's before will also be after. But I think it does presuppose that there actually would be 2 meetings. I think the intention of it, there would be 2 meetings: a wash-up meeting and a preparation meeting. And just if Councillor Bowen can clarify, that's actually what he wanted by virtue of his amendment.
I think to make life easier on this one, for clarity, is because it also, if they meet beforehand, a part of that, I think it's more important to meet beforehand than after. Grant, I take your point that after is before and before is after as well. But beforehand, you can also spend part of that meeting looking back. What do we learn from last time? But the before bit should be closer to the start of the next round rather than after the last meeting of the previous round. So I would be happy to change that to chairs to meet before each round of meetings to review and forward plan. I think that makes it clearer or easier.
Thank you, Councillor Wise.
Yeah, that wasn't my interest in that, in saying that I really don't want to have so many more meetings put in my diary if I continue as the chair, obviously, for Sittingbourne. But yes, I'm fully in support of that, and it's not beyond the wit of us as chairs to email a wash-up around, and if we need to meet, then we can.
Thank you. So, can we have Councillor Speed?
Sorry, just a quick point. Yes, I'd agree with Councillor Bowen's amended amendments so that the chairs meet before each round, because, as we've said, they can also discuss the previous one at the same time. The other point I wanted to suggest was, in particular, this meeting will consider and agree future items that are suitable for the public vote, because if they're just considered but there's no agreement reached, you'll then have inconsistency with some forums having public votes and other forums not having public votes on the same issue. So I think there ought to be a provision for that to be agreed, not just considered.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen, are you happy to have that appended? Councillor Palmer? Yeah. Okay. Right, we'll take that particular, so item 4 to the vote, please. Those in favour as amended?
Sorry, Chair, just to clarify, this should be a vote on the amendment.
Yes.
So this is a vote on the amendment, not the substantive item. So.
Yeah. Just on the amendment? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And
now we've made that amendment and it has to be agreed. Does that mean that those meetings of the chairs of the area committees for now would have to be held in person in order to make a decision? Because we can't make decisions in virtual meetings.
I have to say, I don't actually agree that's a council decision. That's an agreement between councillors as to how they're going to approach agenda items as a pre-meeting. I don't think you need to be that.
okay, thank you. So, members, can we now trot through them all? Are we happy now to take them, all 4 of those, on block? Thank you. Those in favour? Oh, I have a proposer first, sorry. Proposer? Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Seconder? Councillor Wise. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. It's one final proposed amendment to the Constitution, and that is actually proposed by me, and it is in relation to the ability for the council seal to be applied to documents electronically. In the actual request for a change itself is literally any reference to the council seal as it stands in the Constitution would be changed to and including the electronic seal, just so that there is consistency throughout the document. Councillors may well be aware that it's been the law that it's possible to use electronic signature since at least the year 2000. And at the moment, there is quite a lot of documents that are still carried out by way of literally hard copy, the application of a seal and a wet ink signature. That will continue to be the case for a while, partly because lawyers are archaic people and we like doing things like that. But in the circumstances where it is safe, secure, reasonable and appropriate for the seal to be applied electronically in the same way that we apply a signature electronically, then this amendment to the Constitution would allow us to do so and will hopefully contribute to greater efficiency and making a less use of paper and the old-fashioned printing out of bundles, which, as we know, cuts down lots of trees. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Harrison, who I guess is going to suggest that we also involve the town crier to announce the seal having been applied.
I find this really, really sad, Mr. Chairman. You know, there's so much history surrounding it. I mean, I put this on a par with making BP a HMO. I mean, it's sacrilege, isn't it?
Thank you. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Kicking and screaming, we must move into this century, even if it is 20 years late. I think, similar to the other ones, I think this is an absolute no-brainer. On Councillor Harrison's point, I do. There's a part of the pomp and circumstance around local government and how we do things, but that's not saying this isn't saying we will never use the old type again. Sometimes we may, but it actually makes it a lot more efficient. Going forward, where that is the case. As I said at the Constitution Working Group meeting where this was discussed, I've got no issue with this whatsoever, other than a slight, I'm going to say reservation, that's probably the wrong word, in terms of ensuring that the security of the electric seal is sufficient, that it cannot allow that seal to fall in or potentially into hacker's hand. Well, not mind you, which hacker would be interested in actually the Scarborough Council seal, but you never know. Ask Marks and Spencers and Jaguar what being hacked feels like to them. But as long as we've got the security in place to make sure that actually is maintained, no brainer. Thank you.
Mr. Harris, can you give us at least a small little bit of comfort on that one?
Absolutely. So the software, we haven't contracted yet, so I won't name the brand, but the software provider obviously has to meet all British and European standards in relation to the security of their site and of the stuff that's stored on their site. And so it is, it meets all relevant legal standards and is therefore equally as safe as anything, any information the council already holds, including, for example, every authorised signatory's electronic signature, which sits on our council database in numerous places and is therefore available if anyone wants to check, signed by Larissa Reid. Didn't hear it here first.
She's not a signatory on the bank
Thank
account.
you. So, members, could I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Boyne, seconded by Councillor Palmer. All those in favour, please? Unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Chair.
And now we move on to agenda item 6, which is the reduction in the number of service committees.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to jump in. Can I actually also, for the record, also thank Robin for his work on that, but also Janet for her contributions in terms of the area committee. She disappeared now. Before
Yeah.
Can actually say thanks, but her contribution and helping actually bringing this forward to the point it can now go through to full council. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will endorse that wholeheartedly. Thank you. Agenda item 6 then, which is in the hands of Lisa this evening.
Thank you. So I'm bringing this report on behalf of Larissa. He didn't say capable hands, did he? He just said hands. So this is a bit of a strange report, actually, because I'm asking you to reverse a decision that you've already taken. So I suppose because we should have to introduce it, but we're asking you not to. The decision was taken to review our committees, and this time last year you decided to reduce the number of service committees, which is how we've been operating this year, but then the further decision to take another one out come the new civic year. As things have been operating this year, things have changed slightly, and we have had a lot more agenda items as the scrutiny role has been more evolved, and we've had lots more reports to note giving information about the council's position and the national position. So as a result, the agendas have been very full, and I think as tonight will prove, we are here doing an extraordinary meeting so to fit some things in. So this report is asking for you to reconsider the position to take out another committee and to stay as we are with the 4 service committees that have been operating for this civic year.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen, please.
Thank you, Chair. As again, once discussed at the working group, this I think also is a bit of a no-brainer. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, with all the best of intentions in the world. When we looked at this a year ago and cut the committees with a view to reducing them further this year, the business that's been transacted over the last 12 months, I think, to cut further would put a lot more pressure and time demands on every single person, be it councillor, officer, in this organisation to actually make that happen. And then you're going to also see an increase in the number of either meetings or the agendas, and either doing disservice to the agenda items because we're rushing them through, or more and more extraordinary meetings. I think from, say, the hindsight's a wonderful thing. It appears to me that actually what we currently have, and with, I like to say it, local government review looming and gradually crawling towards us, this, I think, is probably the best, most efficient way of carrying out council business at the moment going forward. So I think it makes sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wise, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'm in support of this. I think some committees have got some significant things that they're working on at the moment, which has necessitated working groups or task and finish groups. I think that could be complicated or interrupted by a further reorganisation of the committees. There's also, for example, for economy and property, quite a lot of negotiations going on around asset transfers that are bringing quite a lot of business their way that will require them to allocate agenda time for those sorts of things, which weren't necessarily coming through at the same volume once when this was initially coming through. So sort of LGR has taken up some of this time that committees are now having to look at other items that they weren't previously planning to do. So I am in support of the recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. As this is what I proposed a number of times last year, rather than reducing it further, I'm happy to propose again today, and this isn't a told you so.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Well, personally, I'm in favour of a committee of 1. Well done. Well, no, I don't mind 2 people because one could give apologies.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison.
The reason I put my hand up, for Mr. Chairman, is I've just found my little notes from the Wednesday, the 17th of December. This is, oh gosh, look, not even a month later, Tuesday, the 13th of Jan. We came in. I do understand the need for extra meetings, as I have over many, many years. But sometimes you just think, well, why couldn't you have done that when you did that? I know there was the land stuff for Rainbow, but what we've done tonight, was that not ready for Christmas? I suppose what I'm getting at is I'm quite happy to come in here. Well, not happy, but I'll come in for
We have noted that.
To 3-hour meetings where you can have a proper discussion on issues of relevance to the council and the residents. But dragging over here in the pouring rain for half hour, if that. Oh, how are we doing? Oh, we've done an hour.
Don't worry, I'll make sure it drags a bit longer.
And I think that was about half hour on the 17th of December. Oh, 10 minutes, I'm told. You know, you just think to yourself, really? You know, I think it's about organisation and effective utilisation of resources. And I am a resource as well as our officers. I just make that point. Thank you.
Hasn't fallen on deaf ears. Councillor Gibson, please.
As I often do, wholeheartedly second Councillor Harrison's view on short meetings and how I would, if I'm going to get on the A2, I'd much rather do it for an extended period of time than spend more time on the A2 than I do in this chamber, which is often a very disappointing outcome. My only slight criticism of this report, I don't have any particularly strong views either way, is that an informal consultation of turkeys we're asking to vote for Christmas is perhaps not a hugely democratic system for judging whether or not something has wide support in the chamber or the general public. So I look forward to a full and cross-party debate at full council on this, because what we're talking about, 8 chairs who are deciding whether or not they would like to keep 8 of them is not a hugely democratic way of deciding whether 8 is the appropriate number. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
No surprise, concurring with my learned colleagues here on those points. Where I would look at is whether or not we can look very carefully at what the additional cost implication is. Naturally, we know that there's still going to be the continued SRAs, but did we not plan for a reduction in SRAs going forward as a result when we made this decision before? And therefore, given this is basically because of LGR, it should be in the little penciled book that we have saying this is an LGR cost, not a we wanted to do more work cost. We're doing more work because we're told we have to do more work for LGR. Almost as though one of those committees should perhaps be the LGR committee.
Thank you. Lisa, did you want to just...
Yeah, I hadn't put that into the budget figures, so there's nothing to take out, thankfully.
Thank you. So, Councillor Worcester, just in time.
Yeah, sorry. As one of the chairs of the committees that are taking on a huge amount of work, it is a huge amount of work, but I do believe there is more work we can do to streamline and make my agendas more efficient. So on that basis, I agree with Councillor Gibson. I look forward to debate on this issue, but I would just like to highlight the work that has been done by both members and officers in putting the new system together. It hasn't been a short amount of work for anybody. I believe, though, that it is the right way forward, and I think we can do some work. Thank you.
Thank you. So, members could have a proposer then for this one. Councillor Wise, seconded by Councillor Jays. Those in favour? And that's unanimous too. So, members, thank you. Sorry for those that have had a long journey for a short stay. In my case, it's the other way around. So I'm just very fortunate. And wish you all a safe trip back and see you all very soon. Thank you very much.